And here we are.
Here we are.
Yep. You know what's funny about that song, beside bringing back all the nostalgia, is that I once heard it without special effects, all that the sound from the cartoon and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not as good. It's not.
No, man, that intro is one of the best superhero animated series intros out there. I mean, if you think about it, before we even get on subject, we're going to derail. For me, all of the major superhero shows that were so good in the 80s or 90s, the theme song was equally good.
Oh yeah.
Like none of them had a lame theme song. The theme song and the intro got you so pumped that you were just ready for another episode.
Exactly. And you remember those lyrics, you remember that song, and it's engraved. Even Beast Wars, not the greatest lyrics, but it was still that music just sticks with you.
Everything. I mean, some theme songs were better than the shows.
Oh yeah.
Like there's some fantastic theme songs out there, and I couldn't stand the show. There's a show called The Raccoons, which I know is like a Canadian staple, and it's probably heresy for me to talk bad about, from the 80s, that has some of the best music intro and outro in the history of cartoon theme songs.
Which show?
The Raccoons.
Yeah, I remember the Raccoons. That's right, man. But see, I'm from up north, so up north we didn't get all of the different shows. We got some in English. We got most of them in French, like G.I. Joe and Transformers. I watched in French, but He-Man and Thundercats I only saw in English.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So, all right, for me, like the voice actors, you love voice actors. The voice actors that make our shows, like, that absolutely make or break our favorite characters. To hear them, you grew up listening to them in French, right?
Yeah.
So when you end up hearing these American or English, not necessarily American voice actors, which is your nostalgia?
Well, my nostalgia is, it's weird, but it's the English ones, because those are the one in the 90s when Napster and Keza and all those streaming services started. That's what I downloaded, the English version, and that's what I listened. I went on an anti-French for a while because, rebellious teenager.
Did you learn English around the same, like English and French side by side? So,
starting, I was maybe 10 when we started learning English, but I was already watching all the English cartoons. So actually, I was, not to brag, I was top of my class up until I moved down here in the Ottawa area. But when I was up north, I had no equals. No, I'm bragging now. But yeah, so my nostalgia is really because I don't actually recall the French.
Okay, I've always been curious about that because, I mean, as a kid growing up, it's almost like other countries don't exist, right? Like what you watch is yours, and I can't fathom hearing any of these characters that I grew up with in another language. It's not obviously a play on words, but it would be so foreign to me to hear Optimus Prime or all these characters in a different accent. And I imagine I have to assume it's the same way for anime. Like there's a bunch of, like, the Japanese shows that I watched. I mean, I know plenty of Americans or English speakers that feel the same way, but
some dubs are pretty bad though. So I'll actually prefer to watch with subtitles at some point.
Like Dragon Ball Z, one of the most famous. Like when I hear the American Goku voice,
hey, look at that.
I love it. When I hear the Japanese subtitle with the original voice, I'm like, holy crap, that's annoying. But it's not native to my ears. Like it
can be depending, because Dragon Ball is super energetic. So it's like, so it's like, but there's some other anime that's cooler.
Hey, but look, anyway, we got the memo.
We got the memo.
You got the memo.
So I'm just gonna take a second, guys, because this is my first time, and I totally forgot to do the hey, let's check the chat. So on top we have my girlfriend.
I started running my mouth too quick.
We have so if I hit here, there you go. That's my girlfriend, and she's gonna hate that right now because she doesn't like attention. So there we have David. Thanks for stopping by. Digital. Burnt. Princeton. Thanks. Elites. I wish I had a super chat set up because
no
Elite's
super
here.
chat videos tonight.
Nope. Oh, thanks, honey. She likes my intro. And Memo. Go ahead.
Do you prefer this view or like the big spread out view?
I don't know. What do we prefer? Do you like this?
Ooh, I like seeing Memo's new shelves.
Oh yeah, man, those shelves are awesome.
Yeah, in my step ladder.
Yeah. Well, you do what you got to do, man.
That looks
but it's
great.
Good.
That
we got the weapons dealer is right here.
Fire Talks. That might be what I have to go with. Are those Billies?
Yeah, they're Billies.
Dang.
I mean, that entire setup, 3 small shelves that are made to hook together and 2 big ones was $220. So it's.
But do you have an IKEA nearby?
It's about an hour away.
Yeah.
See, my closest IKEA is like 4 hours.
Oh, I'll go and I'll ship it to you.
All right.
I'm kidding. And we have the Lone Dragon has arrived. Thanks for coming. And this guy, well, you know this. He got me my Netflix Bumblebee, so I'm forever grateful. And we have another celebrity in the chat, Inutabi. Hey, man.
Inutabi.
See, Digital. Digital, I haven't forgotten. I'm still looking for that. Do you still need the buzzworthy Bumblebee? The Origins? Or did you find?
Yeah, let us know in the chat, Digital. I'll try to pick you up. So the idea here today, guys, is that me and Kato have been sometimes exchanging comments about doing X-Men. And, I know his favorite crossover event is also my favorite crossover event. And we shared that additionally, that our love of Sunstreaker. So I wanted to do something. And Memo, you both did reviews recently about the Age of Apocalypse line, which is one line I actually never read.
Oh, you're missing out.
I know. What happened is that I wanted it. I wanted to know how much was the omnibus. So the store bought it and then said, okay, you owe us $160, which I did not have. Canadian. So I didn't pick it up. And but now I eventually I will do it. But I do have a pretty good stack of X-Men right here. You saw all the cover in my new intro. And yeah.
Speaking of X-Men, look at what I found.
We have Chris
today.
And Larkin. That's it. I'm only missing Sardo, and that's it. I made it.
Sardo's probably asleep. That's the workingest man in show business. Yeah. Fatal Attractions. I have very, very clear memories of seeing that on the shelves at not even at comic book stores, but like at like Walmart.
And it's got the holographic Gambit.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
Is that the one with? That's the one with Wolverine.
Yes,
where it happens. Okay. See, I have a pile of Wolverine. I have the comics where he gets his adamantium back. It's good comic, but I have the foil cover for the claws, and
this is often where Colossus gets his start as a villain.
Yep, when he joined the Acolytes. All right, so I'll start with asking you a question. So let's go with Kato first. What was your attraction to X-Men? I know you're also a big Spider-Man fan, but what's your connection to X-Men? Like, what attracted you to it?
Watching Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends and all that stuff going. That was probably my earliest. Not my earliest Spider-Man show was on an educational program called The Electric Company. They had this Spider-Man was on there, but watching like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, he'd always have these cameos that would show, people that would show up, and then later on into the 90s and stuff. Of course, the crossovers on the animated series and X-Men the animated series. When I started collecting comics pretty heavy, honestly, was when I had a job I could buy on my own, was around the Death of Superman era. I mean, I've always been a geek, right? I've always liked that kind of stuff. I just couldn't get it. It's just either there was no comic book store around, I just couldn't get it. But I really started collecting around the time of, the death of Superman when it made news. Like it made all the big news outlets saying Superman's going to die.
It changed the face of comics. That was mainstream news. You know, you had it on morning shows and you know, Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and it never happened before.
And then I've known about X-Men and all that kind of stuff, but not deep into their stories. And I liked the idea of it. And that's awesome. I think I got a couple of those milestones too. Yeah. But I started reading, man, it actually may have been around because the death of Superman and all that, and the Executioner's song.
That's my favorite.
That's my favorite too. But I think that's a nostalgia laden favorite because it's around the same. That all happened around the same time. So, like,
I'm trying to order my comics.
I think I liked the idea of. I mean, we like to pretend about diversity now or whatever and argue about that. But the X-Men to me was like a new civil rights movement, and it gave every human something else to hate.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, telling the story of how stupid humans were for hating something that was different just because you know, what did Professor X say all the time? They hate and fear us.
Yep.
And then you've got, so I loved that story. And I think like the artwork at the time, like the John Romita Jr., who is probably my favorite artist of all time, Chris Claremont's early, like his somewhat earlier writing, some of his later stuff got really wordy, but like the John Romita and Chris Claremont stuff really pulled me in. And then you go into Jim Lee and stuff like that. So I really
Jim Lee is my top.
Yeah.
Jim and Rob Liefeld. Really? Rob Liefeld, who created Cable and wrote most of the Deadpool as well, and that's my indoctrination was really that period of X-Men because I work at a corner store, so
like you could never have enough pockets and backpacks, right? That was the Liefeld way. Me too. Around that same time, so you had like the John Byrne, Chris Claremont, John Romita Jr., Jim Lee. So, hey, M3.
M3. Thanks for stopping by.
So I just really liked, and I liked that there were so many characters that you could get these one-off stories and get focused on someone. Of course, I mean, the two most popular Marvel characters, Spider-Man and Wolverine, you could not get enough of those. But I really like the stories depending on who told them, at least all the way up until
after 1990
stuff.
Like 2000 stuff.
I got sucked back into it during, like, really heavily sucked back into it, giggity, in the
Messiah Complex.
No, when they God, I remember having a brain fart. What the other universe was called, where they did Spider-Man and X-Men all over again. Why am I having a brain fart on this? It was the Ultimate universe.
Oh yeah, I didn't get into Ultimate.
Oh, I was all about that. I thought
really,
okay, I loved it.
It was good. Like I read a couple, but I preferred to keep. Like I understood the reasoning for Marvel to wanting to have a fresh start with the same characters.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. The artwork was great. I loved it that they could tell old stories again in a new way. Yeah, Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate X-Men.
I like that the fact that Ultimate X-Men, no fooling around. Jean Grey sleeps with Wolverine day one.
Yep,
I was away. Yep, there you go. It's out of the table. It's done. What about you, Memo? How did you get into X-Men?
Well, I was a fan a little bit in the late 80s when I was younger. And then we, right when I was starting to grasp into Marvel Comics and stuff like that, my dad was in the military. he got stationed in the Philippines. So I got taken from this world where it was abundant and everywhere, and thrown into this world where somebody could literally try and take your life if you went out to a store to try and get a magazine, you know? So I got into it and got thrust out. And then right when I came back, the 90s, early 90s, I really started to get back into it. But the thing that really drew me back in was the animated series. I mean, I had been away from it for so long, I kind of lost track of it. And then I saw the animated series, and I'm back in, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, my comic book collection started there, and I couldn't get enough of X-Men. That was my main go-to. And then that coincidentally, that's also the time frame, you know, got me into I really love Venom.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
Venom was a great era of comics.
Oh yeah,
it was
golden age, a second golden age.
Night Thrasher too. I mean, that's when it all started, and then we moved again, and I got stuck in a place in upstate New York that didn't have a comic book store for 50 miles.
Yeah.
So I've been thrust into it, ripped out of it, and thrust into it, and ripped out of it repeatedly.
Well, the thing about that 90s X-Men, like it was just around my somewhat upper high school years. Again, I was working. I had started a local comic shop opened up. It was perfect timing. And I would go after school and literally go wash windows and vacuum his floor. And I'd get like a free couple books every week or something like that. And
that's perfect.
It was great. It's all I wanted. Yeah. But it was right around the time of like I say, Executioner's Song.
The X Team era.
The Superman. Yeah, yeah. It was the gold, the gold team era. It was just a good time for comics. Like you said, that Lethal Protector series. Later on, I got into when they announced their mature line. It was the Max Max comics. Loved those. Still got some of those. I think all my comics are put away, but the 90s X-Men cartoon kind of fostered that so much more, because I would see something on there and then I would want to go find the comic or something that maybe that story was from, like Days of Future Past, one of the best storylines in the animated series. But yeah, I was all in on comics for a long time, then took a break and came back to them. But yeah, very much. And I started finding like more and more comics started opening up. It became not quite as hard to find them. I started working in a bigger city that had a couple of comic book shops, and it just started getting easier to get stuff. I remember, like, for a short time, it was kind of like underground where I was from to try and find comics. And it was literally, in this day and age, there's no way I would do this. But there was a guy that knew a guy that knew a guy that sold comics out of a like one of those sheds you buy at Home Depot.
Yeah. Okay.
In his front yard. And I was like, okay, this is kind of weird, but I'm going to go check this out. So me and a buddy went up there. We drove up to this guy's house, and sure as shit, there was he had like a miniature store inside there of just a bunch
like
of
a newsstand type thing it was in a shed. Like,
okay. That's exactly what it was. And I was like, well, this is where I'm getting my comics. And then finally that another store opened up. But yeah, it was awesome. There's a local comic shop here that I haven't been to in quite a while, just because I haven't been interested in everything.
We don't have
being written now.
We don't have that much comic shop. Like, we have multi hobbies. Basically, there's Warhammer, Magic, cartoon, like comics and card games, and anything and whatnot. But it's like their comic stock is just new stuff, and then they have a pile in the back where it's old stuff, but it's not classified like repertoire. Like, it's basically just go and dig for 3 hours and maybe
that's not right.
So it's like, okay, because I got, like, I was On my part, my first thing about comics was the X-Men cartoon and the Spider-Man cartoon. I had I had an old Superman and Spider-Man crossover from the 70s, maybe the 80s, with Doctor Doom and Parasite, and that was like the only comic I really had. But we didn't have comic shops up north, and the few comics I've seen were black and white, and but the cartoon really opened up that world. Like I just moved in '93 from up north to an area where they had cable. That show started 2 years later, and it was just so good. And so I started collecting Wolverines and X-Men's and a bit of Spider-Man. I have a huge pile of Wolverines that I read once in a while. But what it's funny, what really got me into it is like relating to the X-Men was that in my head they just wanted to be accepted, and that's something that I've overly strived for most of my life. You know, you try to be accepted in high school, you move city, you try to be accepted, it doesn't work. Get a new job, you want to be accepted by the people working there, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And then you start a YouTube channel and you want to be accepted by the people working, doing it. And so it was always that acceptance that I'm like, man, these people just want to be part of the human race and live in peace and have fun with you guys. And but the stories and that were so good. I used to be a huge Wolverine fan. Now as I grow older, I'm more. I'm not. I'm a Cable fan. Cable is my main character, because most of the stuff I have collected in the past, let's say in the past 5 years, I went after trade paperbacks to be able to get compilation. I got this for Christmas because of gift cards I received. That's up until the first Phoenix, when Phoenix dies. Not that when she comes back, but when she dies. So that was a really fun read. And then after that, I have, X Factor when the original team came back. That's when you learn that Cyclops is a dick and he's left his wife and kid to come back for Jean.
The funny, to get like crazy off topic for a second, when you're talking about being accepted, that's one thing about Marvel Comics that I've always liked. I know that there's a big Marvel versus DC thing. I've always appreciated the Marvel Comics heroes more than, not that I'm not, I love Superman. He's my favorite, probably my favorite DC, of course, Batman. Everybody has to like Batman. It's a prerequisite. But like what made Marvel so good to me, I could relate to the characters so much more. Like Spider-Man, I could relate to him. I mean, I wasn't in a big city, but
they're not perfect.
Yeah. And I always the DC pantheon. They're the Greek gods of the comic world, right? But their weaknesses were out of their control, right? Like you've got Superman who comes to Earth. He had no control of that. He just came to Earth. He was alone. His planet blew up. It's very sad, but he couldn't do anything about it, right?
Exactly.
Batman. He was a kid. He couldn't do anything about losing his parents. And not all of them, but the greater characters. Wonder Woman. She was created to be a loved kid. She couldn't do anything about that.
Yep.
But then you've got and they had weaknesses like Kryptonite, Superman, being broke, Batman.
Yeah, there you go.
They all had these like designated weaknesses that were interesting, but out of their control. Where you read Spider-Man, you're like, I can totally relate to a guy who gets power and uses it because he's been picked on and uses it to be popular and to get money and is selfish for 5 seconds, and now he feels responsible for everything that ever happened to him.
Yeah.
Like his weakness is his own mistake. It's his responsibility. You got like Wolverine, like all these characters, they don't have like a rock that makes them weaker. It's a mental issue or some kind of thing in their life. It's much more normal than, it could be anger, it could be greed or selfishness or things like that. And that was so much easier for me to relate to reading X-Men. I could read Superman and be wildly entertained at this really nice guy who was doing great stuff. But it was just much more relatable characters to me in general in Marvel and X-Men and Spider-Man.
There you go.
And I'm sure I'm not alone in that, but
oh no, I exactly. I bet Memo's the same thing. So it was, you know, the fact that they were relatable rather than being gods, and I think that's important.
I was much more of a make mine Marvel guy than I was a DC. Again, loved DC comics. It got me started reading comics really, and I loved the characters. But I read DC comics to be entertained. I read Marvel comics to relate in a weird way.
Yeah, to me, I mean, DC has their origins, and that seems to shape a character for who they are for the rest of their run. Like Batman's parents were killed, you know, but with Marvel, it's just ongoing with the different problems that they're having, you know, and I mean, they all have the same thing, like with X-Men, prejudice. And the main thing is they're always dealing with that, trying to be accepted, trying to get mutants to be accepted. And there's different arcs from that. But with Batman and Superman, for me, it was more, who are we going to beat up this time? You know,
and what Ninja Bill says, what DC does better than most is their Elseworld stuff. That makes them so much like some of their storytelling that they've welcomed in the freedom of these Elseworld titles, and depending on which origin you want to believe. That's absolutely true, and that's kind of unfortunately the case with everything. It gets retconned about with every annual crossover gets a new retcon. And speaking of crossovers, the 90s, one thing that the 90s had that really screwed me up was the 50 books you had to read to get one story. It would be a 12-month long crossover or a 12 issue long crossover, but then you'd have to read. How many times did we flip through Executioner Song or Fatal Attraction? It's like continued in X Factor number 3.
Oh yeah. There's tons of those.
And then you'd have to get X-Men Alpha and X-Men Omega and all the single issue
Blue Team,
tie-ins.
Gold Team, New X-Men, Astonishing X-Men, Extreme X-Men, and
the only time I remember, and I don't do much with DC, but the only time I remember them doing that is with the Death of Superman.
Yeah, at least that heavily. Yeah, for sure. The Death of Superman was everywhere. The Batman, the Azrael Bane Batman series, that tied into a lot of stuff. Probably very similarly. The 90s was full of that. And so man, we've been on the comics for 30 minutes. How in the world are we going to do the cartoon?
Let's go with just favorite arc, and maybe we can do cartoon and movies another time, but favorite arc is to me was Executioner Song, and you can tell this book is worn out, and I think it was well presented. The artwork is amazing, and this is the first time that it's kind of confirmed that Cable is Cyclops and Jean's son, or that the X team knows, and I think it's actually ripped. But that was one of my favorite arc, but I have pretty much anything that relates to Cable. Inferno, where Madeline Pryor actually goes crazy and try to sacrifice him to unleash hell in Manhattan. Then after that, I have the original X-Force 1 through 15 and the Cable limited run. This here, where he's going on an adventure with Garrison Kane.
Hold on, you guys keep talking. I'm going to see if I can find something real quick.
Okay. And then issue number 2, that's when he actually realized that Strife has his face. And what was your favorite story arc?
I have to say Fatal Attractions. Unfortunately, I missed out on Executioner's Song. I like that, and I really like the Apocalypse, the Four Horsemen storyline for X-Men.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
With Archangel turning into the Bladed Angel.
Yeah, I have a series somewhere in there. I think it's in Inferno or maybe in Mutant Massacre, but I do have when they have to cut his wings or the Angel. So then, but I don't have after that where he gets his new look.
Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen them. I mean, I've I've gone so far back on collecting comics. I'm not even sure what's really modern, to be honest. All of my stuff remains in the 90s. All my good memories and stuff. I haven't bought an X-Men comic in a long time.
Yeah, I haven't bought anything that's been made after 2010.
Yeah, that's about probably it for me.
Yeah.
But the thing that drew them to me was just the fact that they're not all perfect. There's inner turmoil. Just the with what they're experiencing as far as prejudice, the whole "are we fighting for the right side?" argument. That's what I loved about the X-Men. Whether, I mean, everybody they're still doing it, but they're questioning whether or not they should continue, but they still do.
Always good. What did you find, Kato?
So my favorite is Executioner's Song. We've already talked about that, and I think a lot of that is tied to nostalgia. I loved Strife, and I thought he was an awesome, big, over the top comic book villain. But I've got ranging from like 1994 to 1996. I used to draw all the time. If you would have asked me back then what I was going to do, I was going to be either a comic book artist or a cartoonist.
Okay.
Now, to be fair, all of these, I was really, really good at looking at a comic book and then translating that over to another piece of paper.
Okay.
I never honed the skill to like create a character from scratch
all the time.
So this is probably my second favorite storyline. That's Age of Apocalypse. That was from the cover of X-Men Alpha.
Nice. Wow. Let me blow you up. How do I blow you up?
Just click on this.
Solo layout.
Like this? There's a little rectangle. Yeah,
there you go.
So that's from X-Men Alpha, if I remember right. Most of these were never finished. I got really into Dark Horse comics for a while. When they started doing, there's a character called X that's from 1994 as well. So you could tell that that's around the time that I was reading this stuff.
Man, I'm gonna hire you to do my logo.
The Hulk from way back when.
Nice.
And what reminded me of it is I never finished it, but that was my attempt at the cover of that Cable drawing from way back then. This stuff is butchered. You got the Azrael Batman.
Okay, yeah.
I drew that same picture.
That was a great thing. I never finished the Youngblood team from Image Comics.
Oh yeah, Youngblood.
Much like Rob Liefeld, I was brutally afraid to draw feet.
Yep. Oh, somebody mentioned that in the comment earlier. Yep.
I want to take a second to agree with Jay Lee. What If Wolverine Was Lord of the Vampires is one of my favorite books.
Oh yeah. Spawn was huge at the time.
Yep. Man, you're really good.
Company paper.
This is awesome.
Superboy from
that cover from the Death of
Superman.
Yeah.
With a ballpoint pen. And this is more recent. This is from 2012. About Thor.
Wow.
Wow.
I was big into dragons, so I would draw dragons from the Dungeons and Dragons books.
You play Dungeons and Dragons?
No, I never played it. I always got the book so that I could get draw the dragons.
Okay.
I got the Domino from way back when.
Nice.
Golly, there's another Thor.
There you go.
So yeah, I forgot that I had these. I did post them on Instagram some time ago. Digital Caveman, and then I've got a boatload of like Beauty and the Beast stuff.
Okay, that's a different.
Did you sing to yourself while you were drawing those?
I love that movie, man. I love that movie. I my senior year in school, I had to choose an art project, and I did a giant clay Lumiere.
Nice.
Probably about 3 feet tall, like an actual Lumiere candelabra, and some peckerhead broke it by accident. But
hopefully by accident. Okay.
It was by accident. Yeah.
Man, respect, man. This is great art. I can't draw a stick.
But I haven't drawn in years, and every time I try now, it's like I may as well be drawing with my feet.
I don't know, man. Your logo's pretty cool.
I didn't draw that.
Huh? I thought you did your own.
No, that was done by a fantastic guy by the name of
that little guy with the hands like this.
Yeah, that was done by a fantastic guy by the name of Brandon Jackson. I think his last name is. He has an Instagram page called Meet Charles Chan. It's hilarious. I highly recommend people go check that out. But you're going to be offended. Absolutely going to be offended.
Hey, no, I probably won't.
He's a fellow Canadian.
Oh, okay. All right, well, I'll check him out. Yeah. So comics. I was, I figured I knew we were probably gonna talk for a long time. Cartoons we've covered. Have you watched X-Men Evolution, Wolverine and the X-Men, those other cartoons that came afterwards?
I've been actually watching a bunch of them on Disney Plus because all that stuff.
That's my favorite thing on Disney Plus is rewatching all that stuff.
Yeah. I
watched X-Men Evolution pretty regularly. Wolverine and the X-Men, less so. I think I was definitely out full force in the workforce, when all that was going on. But X-Men Evolution, I thought was a cool retelling in the same way that I liked the Ultimate Universe. This was a cool way to do that.
The only thing I didn't like was that Rogue didn't have the Miss Marvel powers.
Yeah,
I hate that.
I'm sure they were. If the show had kept going, I'm sure they were going to get there.
Maybe, but then again, it's all copyright now, right? Like it's always about the same thing that happened to the movies. Why?
And at that time, it was way worse. Like the rights were scattered all over the place.
Exactly.
What they could and couldn't do.
So just the fact that you had the X-Men in Spider-Man in the cartoon was whoa.
Yeah.
Blew my mind.
Before we move to the future of the X-Men animated series, what was your favorite storyline in the animated series? I've been rewatching that recently. I'm going through the first season again now. What was your favorite X-Men the animated series story arc?
Mine was when Cable goes to the past to try to stop Apocalypse after Apocalypse stole his little computer. So now Apocalypse is in the time stream and he's able to he's kidnapping telepaths across different era for some purpose. And then you have Bishop who's trapped in the Nexus, and that's the only episode that you actually see Psylocke and a little more of Archangel after he went through the trauma and he's getting back at being that billionaire playboy. That's my favorite. Not speaking about like all the Wolverines one-off, which were always amazing with Alpha Flight and everything, but that story arc in the cartoons, that's my favorite. How about you, Memo?
The Alpha Flight spinoff was pretty cool. But again, I think I would like the Apocalypse and the Four Horsemen.
Yep.
Series of episodes. But again, everything involving Cable and Bishop were great. I mean, Bishop is one of my favorite characters, and
Okay, then don't read Messiah Complex because you won't like him no more. Just like, yeah. I mean, it's a good storyline though.
Yeah, I was always a big because of the animated series. I was always a
Yeah,
reasonably big fan of Bishop, and then later reading some of the stuff in the comics. I loved at the time. I was a big fan of anything space related. I loved all their stories. I especially loved in the comics when they went into like some deeper, darker areas. Not to get back on comics, but there was an issue of the X-Men comics where Professor X sent Wolverine to go deal with a kid who had explosive powers and was going to go supernova. And he basically, what you find out is, spoiler alert, he sat there and listened to this kid tell a story for the whole comic, but you find out that he's basically there to kill him so that he doesn't blow up the planet.
yeah.
So it was a great story. But I loved any episode of the animated series where they would deal with like the Shi'ar Empire when they started dealing with Lilandra and going into space, and you got to see like this other part of the Marvel universe out there. Because I've always liked the Fantastic Four and all the like intergalactic Marvel comics too. So when they started dealing with like the Shi'ar Empire and the Phoenix and all that kind of stuff, I really, really enjoyed that a lot. Then of course the Days of Future Past, the normal stuff, but the oddball
See,
stuff like the Shi'ar.
That's funny. The Days of Future Past, I have it, and it's a good story. It's amazing. Has nothing to do with the Days of Future Past that they showed in the cartoon. Like, it's not even close, and that's not even close to the Days of Future Past movie that they did. It's 3 completely different stories, but all good. Days of Future Past X-Men movie was really, I really enjoyed it. The cartoon, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So, do you still have time, or?
Oh no, I'm good.
You're good.
I'm listening to my earpiece tell me I'm running out of time though because it says low battery, but I think I'll be all right. How about we can go to the upcoming reboot of the animated series? What is the number one storyline you want to see brought to the X-Men? Was it X-Men 97 they're calling
it? Yeah, that's what they're calling it. I would like, because I'm a Cable fan, I would like them to do the Madeline Pryor clone Cyclops. Jean is dead again, and Cyclops goes with Madeline, and like do that for like two seasons, and then Jean comes back, and then you have X Factor, and you have an origin for Cable, and after that, do a little bit of time traveling stuff, and I would love to see that. But the thing is that I don't know how good that show will be. I want it so bad to be good.
Yeah, me too.
But with everything that's been rebooted, that's total garbage right now. I'm afraid.
But overall, Disney Plus has yet to like thoroughly disappoint me on their direct to Disney Plus comic book stuff.
Okay, I haven't had a chance to listen to a lot of it. So
Disney Plus has been impressive, especially Hawkeye. I'm really loving that.
Oh man, what a fun show! I already really liked Hawkeye anyway. I have a soft spot for like the human characters inside a world of heroes because I just think those are the most heroic people. How heroic do you have to be when you can, take a bullet straight to the face and it's not a problem? Like the real heroes are the ones. I mean, even Batman to some degree. I mean, he has all the fancy stuff, but for the most part, the real heroes are the guys who are going to get punched in the face and have to go ice their shoulder when they go home. But yeah, for me, I do want to see Executioner's Song, Age of Apocalypse. I think those are probably givens. I think they have to do that if they're going to stick with the going into the 90s stuff. But I also wouldn't mind them dipping into like some of the 2000s stories and doing what I'm assuming we're going to get like 8 to 8 to 13 episodes per season.
Yeah, I miss the days of 22 episodes.
Yeah, 25 episodes isn't coming to happen anytime soon.
But I mean, even the original animated series, I mean they had some season-long arcs a little bit, but major stories didn't last a season.
No, like 5 episodes. About 5 episodes you had.
So they could pull that off. They could do a Executioner song, Age of Apocalypse, much better than that.
They could do an Executioner song at like season 3 or 4 if they go for a while. You know, you do the whole story arc with Madeline. You get Nathan sent to the future with Rachel, and then after that, boom, you can do Executioner because you have strife. You have a reason for all of those people. So
I'm just scared that they're gonna do like what they did with what DC did with Man of Steel. You know, like they're going to introduce a character like Man of Steel, and then suddenly you have his death in the second movie. I mean, what was there in the comic books? There was what 40, 50 years in between.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that was their big mistake. So by far, you had 50 years to love the Boy Scout before he became the Brooder. To introduce him into the DC universe as he was just a super strong Batman. It was annoying. I want
to see. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say I don't think they did Henry Cavill any justice. He could have been such a great.
Oh yeah.
You want to see a good Superman? Go watch Superman and Lois.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I should give it a shot.
For the future, I want to see more Mr. Sinister. I mean, we're gonna have to definitely have Apocalypse show up at some point.
Get this one. Cyclops and Phoenix.
I was just about to say that.
Fast and Future.
Yep, and the Cyclops miniseries. When they were doing the one shots, or not one shots, it was like 5-issue story arcs where they did Storm, Cyclops, Rogue, Gambit. I think they were all like 5 or 6 issue story arcs.
This one is really good because you get to see it's 2 miniseries. One where they go to the future in synthetic bodies to be able to raise Cable without telling him that they're his parents from the past. For some reason, but anyway, that was Ascani's plan. And then you have the other miniseries is when they go in the past and they're present and they're there when Apocalypse rise after 1,500 years of sleep, and he creates Sinister. So you have the fall of Nathaniel Essex. If you want to see good stuff about Sinister,
when you start learning more stuff about Nathaniel Essex and the Insaba Noor storyline, all that stuff, that would be, I'm all for that. So yeah, I'm down for that. I have high hopes. I even have high expectations. That's a sad place to live, because if they screw that up, but all they have to do is what the 90s show did, and that is tell as closely related comic book stories as they can. Take the comic book, you might have to shift it a bit to fit it into a 30-minute long episode, animate it, move on. I hope they keep that same part of me hopes they keep that same color palette, the really dark shadows and the bright colors with the real solid dark single line shadows that just cut through everything. I think that's probably.
I hope they get the same voice actors.
They said that pretty much everyone that was still alive, for the most part, I think is welcome to come back. I'm pretty sure, because they announced
that Wolverine was the Wolverine voice.
Yeah.
It's like no one ever did it as good.
That was the voice. That's still the voice I hear, even more than Hugh Jackman or any of that. I hear the '90s Wolverine.
All right.
I hope the writers are people that have read the comics. I hope it's not a situation like Beast Wars where they didn't have any idea about G1, so they didn't know any.
But they still pulled it off because they went to the forums and they chatted with Benson Yee and all those people.
Yes, they brought it back. But
they did it right. So I hope that they do something like that for X-Men 97, truly. And if they can get the same, the same voice, like Storm is that voice I hear. Like they use 2 or 3 different actors because money costs flying, but it was still always the same voice. Like they really nailed it, and she was amazing. And when she was using her powers, all the phrases that she was saying, "Mother Earth, rise," and I was like, "Wow, she's epic."
Yeah.
And Rogue, I fell
Rogue, got to be Rogue. I think Cyclops, generic white guy works. So whoever they get for that can be fine.
Well, I mean, I relate Cyclops to being an asshole. Like I sound like an asshole, so I think it pulled it up pretty good.
Oh yeah, he was a dick. Like I mean, he did everything for the team. He sacrificed everything for the team, but he was a dick about it.
Oh yeah.
But some voices that need to get as close to the original, if not, and I'm not sure who's still around, but like Beast, Rogue, Gambit,
definitely
as close to Wolverine as possible. But like your vanilla characters, Cyclops and Jean Grey, you could probably play around with those. I mean,
I know the
Jubilee or
the guy that voiced Magneto. I'm pretty sure he's no longer with us.
Yeah, he passed. Yeah,
he was the big baddie in Captain Powers too. That live action TV show.
Really? Oh, wow. He was Lord Dredd.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I need to research other stuff than Transformers. Professor Xavier had a great voice too.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I do. If you notice in my voice actor spotlight, I always talk about the pilot Pride of the X-Men that they shot late 80s, and because a lot of Transformers voice actor actually worked on that pilot, but then when they recasted the show, then they reworked on it. The production company said, we're not hiring anybody that was on the pilot. So I was like, oh man, that's terrible for all those people, but it was the right call. As much as I love the G1er actors, it was the right call because the actor they picked for the X-Men was just so good.
The voice actor that did Sabretooth too.
Oh yeah, he had that little rumble, like that growling in his voice all the time.
It was just
higher pitched. And Apocalypse to me, that's the definitive voice, that deep commanding, like no bullshit. I'm better than you. And
you didn't like Oscar Isaacs?
Huh?
You didn't like Oscar Isaacs?
You know who would do a good Apocalypse, and part of it is just because I was playing God of War earlier. The voice of Kratos, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was on Stargate.
SG-1 or Stargate Atlantis?
Hold on, my headphones died. It's going to get echo. I don't want it to get echoey. So did my sound screw up at all?
No, we're good.
All right, no echo. We're still good.
Yep.
All right, good. Yeah, the guy who did it was the black guy with the crazy eyebrows that was on Stargate.
Teal'c.
Yeah.
The guy with the he had like that stamp in his forehead.
Yep.
He's the voice of Kratos. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So he would make a great Apocalypse. Just talk about someone with a deep, commanding voice.
All right. Well, just if we talk quickly about
Christopher Judge. Chris Melke, got it. Yes. Christopher Judge. That's him.
Chris, I always say Chris should start his own channel because this kid knows all of the actors and the voice, and for everything, he's way ahead of me.
Oh yeah,
but don't, because then I'll be out of business. But yeah, you should. But just what did you think about the whole 9 movies?
Similarly to how I feel about the Transformers live action stuff. I was glad to have it. And when it came out, I was thrilled because I remember reading Wizard Magazine, and when Wizard Magazine did their basically they would fan cast movies, who they would put in movies. They got so many of the X-Men cast right, like the people that they, of course, Patrick Stewart, that was born to happen. Yeah. I think they got Wolverine wrong because I don't think anybody knew who Hugh Jackman was at the time.
No. But they were aiming for Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe, yeah. I think that at the time they were great, But I'm glad that I live. I'm glad that I'm living in a time when Marvel, Disney, is willing to make comic book heroes look like comic book heroes. Because back then, everyone was afraid
Yep.
of the bright colors. I think the later Batman movies ruined that. They were afraid of the bright colors, so everything had to be black leather, and it had to fit into the physics of the world we live in now.
Yep. It was terrible. That was a bad choice, but I think first, second movie, awesome.
Yep, agreed.
Loved it. A couple of things that didn't make real much sense, but I like where they were going. Third movie is a complete garbage.
That's my favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh God,
my
man!
God,
Don't
I'm so
scare
glad
me
you were
like that.
kidding.
No way. Go.
And then after that, the three Wolverine arcs. The first one was terrible. The second one was okay, and then Logan was awesome.
Logan was amazing,
masterpiece level. And then when they did the reboot, at first it was supposed to be a reboot with just the cameo from Hugh Jackman, and that tied it with the original. I didn't like the lineup because those weren't the First Class X-Men. None of them.
Yeah.
I don't like what they did with Mystique. Like they tried to make her, normal, good, and then after that, at the end, she leaves with Magneto. But
the problem with Mystique, I never liked the design for Mystique, and I didn't like when the comics tried to adopt the movie look to try to make it cohesive.
Snake Woman type thing.
Yeah, I didn't like that at all. And what killed the character in the reboot is that Jennifer, what's her name, became super popular.
Well, that's the only reason that they kept her.
And she was doing other movies. She did this little movie called The Hunger Games, if anyone's ever heard of it. Yeah. And suddenly she popped up in superstardom, and it's like, well, we can't have her be this nobody character. We've got to make it about her. And it was just, that's a terrible way to do movies.
Yeah, she should not have been a mainline story character, and then keep her with that background. With it's fun that they tried to twist stuff, like she knew Charles Xavier before, and then I wasn't big fan of that. But then afterwards, when the whole Days of Future Past happened and she's the center point of it, no, I was wrong. And then the third one, with they introduced Cyclops and Jean Grey, and I thought it was good. Then Oscar Isaac really ruined it. Apocalypse. They basically, that storyline made sure to tell us, well, Storm was a really weak mutant, but Apocalypse gave her all her powers, and now she's an Omega level mutant. I was like, no, she was always one of the strongest mutants around. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was terrible. And that's when Charles loses his hair, and I don't know, that one was
too much. It was too much.
And and then again they had the Wolverine cameo, which I think was the best cameo, when he just actually goes berserk and kills everybody at the Department H. I thought that was well done, but they just used it because of the name Hugh Jackman. Yeah. And after that, when the last movie, they tried to do the Phoenix again, and it was totally
I've not garbage. Even seen this newest last movie.
Dude, they have one scene where Nightcrawler snaps and goes against every principle and spears a guy with his tail and kills him.
I always loved Nightcrawler, because I loved that he was this, like, I mean, his whole story is so good, to look like an absolute demon, but to
be a priest,
devout Catholic, was genius.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved everything about him, because he was so kind, but looked absolutely evil. And I loved when a writer treated Nightcrawler with respect. He was one of the best characters, hands down.
Yeah.
I absolutely love Nightcrawler.
Yeah. And the second movie.
That's why the second movie is my favorite of the Singer movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of Nightcrawler.
Yeah, and he was probably the shining point of that whole thing. He was really
that opening scene where he's zapping,
perfect,
bamfing through the White House is just, insane.
Yep. Love Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I also would like to see in the X-Men animated, the new X-Men animated stuff? I would like them to do like what they were so good at was doing all these different story arcs and then having a few episodes, just like a comic. You'd have a few standalone episodes. I'd love to see them do an Exiles, an Exiles storyline with Blink leading the team and Morph. I fell in love with Morph from reading Exiles. And I loved that book because they could. I think it needs its own animated series because
I don't think I actually read Exiles.
Oh man, the early books of Exiles were phenomenal because they could do whatever they wanted. It was what can I liken it to? It was basically
like an earlier version of X-Force.
No, not even that. They were parallel universe jumpers that were going in to fix different timelines of the universe. So you would get these awesome alternate versions of characters, and no one was safe. So they could kill off.
Oh, is it that one where Storm is a vampire?
I don't remember that. We might
no,
be right,
okay, because there was another team where Havoc, who was killed, but was actually sent in the body of an alternate reality Havoc, and he was leading a team of super weird X-Men. Storm was a vampire called Bloodstorm and all that stuff.
Very well could have been because it went on for a while that I wasn't reading it, but like the you had this. I mean, it's what's the best way to? It's like Quantum Leap, but with mutants.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, okay. I'd like to read that. Maybe I'll try to find a couple of things like that.
From what I remember, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so you would have like all these different versions of characters. I don't like that one. I'm trying to find a decent picture of like the 90s Exiles. Yeah, there's a good one. So you have all these different characters popping in with Blink leading the team, and there's the Morph that I love so much. You would have a Cyclops, or not Cyclops. You'd have Sabretooth that was, a good guy. They would pop into these other universes, and basically, like Quantum Leap, they had to right or wrong to make sure the universe went a certain way. I love that.
All right. Oh, that's interesting. I guess they used a bit of that concept with the Loki show.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. Yeah,
they, the time masters or whatever.
Yeah, I love that. I thought that was great. I'd love to see like a season of just dedicated to Exiles, or get their own series, because it's a perfect. You talk about inclusion and a way to work that into a series without like offending a bunch of woke people or anti-woke people, whatever side of the coin you're on. You have a series like Exiles where absolutely anything can happen, and it all makes sense.
If they do the X-Men 97 show properly, I'd like to see spin-offs of X Factor of that era, with X-Force, Excalibur. That'd be interesting.
Be down with that.
Xavier started more than one team. They may as well use it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but I mean, so far, that's the thing with every Hollywood writer. It's, I want to make it my own, and I want to piss off as much as I can of any fans.
Never makes sense to me when you have 30, 40, 50 years of fiction to dive into. We don't want it to be your own. Pick one, do a story.
Yep. It's who did it right? Ghostbusters Afterlife. We're off topic,
but I'm looking forward.
You haven't? Okay, I'm not going to spoil anything. But
I just got a notification about Afterlife. It's going to be available for digital download in 30 days, so they want me to pre-order it.
It's a perfect continuation of the first movie. It doesn't relate that much to the second, or relates at all, but it doesn't dismiss it. But it's just such a good sequel. Like, honestly, I even texted, and it takes a lot of guts for me to text one of you guys. Anybody that has too many, a lot of subscribers, and I don't want to be, seen as the guy who's leeching off you, but I wanted to do a stream with Bert. So don't laugh, man. It's a serious condition. But I texted, or I commented on Bert, and I'm like, are you going to do a live stream about that? go, I'd like to join you. And he's like, oh, I already did one on the Mediocre show. I'm like, oh, okay. So, he's not going to do a second one. But yeah, no, but that's true, Kato. I try to ask as little as possible. I don't want to be that annoying guy.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, but it's fun. No, I'm having a blast. I have 2 videos coming up. I think we pretty much went full circle. Favorite character, just before we derail more. Favorite character, X-Men, since day one or now.
Colossus.
Go ahead, Memo. Colossus. I would want to say Colossus, especially during that whole. Again, he was such a nice guy.
Yep.
During that whole line where he, found out his sister was still alive and all that.
Yeah.
And then of course the leading up to. I was devastated when Colossus died, even though I knew comic books are like that doesn't matter.
I have the issue where he dies because he does the legacy virus. They need a patient 0. I have that issue, and he comes back 2 years later, maybe. So
yeah. But that whole storyline, that was probably my favorite Colossus storyline, where he was just a super nice guy that was this big gentle giant. But my favorite character of the X-Men.
Good job, Inutabi.
Oh man,
where did you get it? I want to know where. Halo. Oh, the campaign is free. Yeah. Okay. The new one. I don't even the original Halo. Sorry, derailing.
I don't know. I think it just depends. Like I remember going through a phase where I really liked Cyclops.
He has his moment when you realize that he's been a dick because he's been manipulated by Sinister all this time.
Yeah, I think it was that storyline, like the Cyclops miniseries, that I really started to like him.
Yeah, but if I can recommend something from House of M, where Scarlet Witch depowers all the mutants, through the whole Messiah complex, Messiah War, where Cable raised the firstborn mutant after House of M.
I have yet to read any of that.
You should. It's if you like Cable though, anyway, but it's really good up until Avenger versus X-Men. That's where from House of M to Avenger versus X-Men, it comes back full circle. And it's an amazing storyline. I'm not saying read everything, but there's through that there's Necrotia, it's actually good art, good story. But anything after that, Disney really tried to. For a while, they were trying to kill the X-Men off because they had no copyrights for the movies for the word mutants. So they actually tried to depower all the mutants and give them back their powers.
What a terrible time to watch TV. Like they ruined a lot of stuff.
Exactly, but they wanted all the mutants to be derived from the Terrigen Mist from the Inhumans. So
glad that didn't pan out.
No, but now, how do you think they're going to introduce X-Men? They had 2 opportunities to introduce X-Men in the MCU, according to me, which is not an expert. But when they did the Miss Marvel movie, which was not a good movie per se, they just needed a Superman to beat Thanos instead of doing teamwork like they usually did. But at the end of Miss Marvel, they should have had the Brotherhood attack her and have Rogue, maybe the same actress or a new actress, but have Rogue steal her power then and there.
Have you seen Venom, the Carnage movie yet?
Yeah. Not yet. I haven't seen Venom. I haven't seen Carnage because I'm actually waiting to have them on Netflix in French so that I can watch it with my girlfriend because then she doesn't speak English. And
I would say that the answer to how they could introduce the X-Men is best summed up at the post-credit scene of Carnage.
Okay, I'll check that out then.
I didn't even like the idea of the Carnage movie enough to watch it, so I just Googled the post-credit scene that everybody was talking about, and I was like, all right. That's how they do it.
Okay.
With the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, with what's going on and Spider-Man, whatever.
No Way Home.
No Way Home.
Yeah.
They're opening the door to be able to just go, Oh,
There's
there they
mutants.
are.
Okay.
They don't have to even try very hard. It's just like, oh, let's open this window. Hey, look, there's this whole thing called X-Men out there.
They could easily just be like, just show up and take part in a battle.
Yep. That's it. I mean, they wouldn't have to go through any long story. They could just pop in.
Well, I really thought that they were going to do it with WandaVision.
That's another way that
I was really pissed when that whole Quicksilver story arc. Oh, he's not actually Quicksilver from another dimension. He's like some guy that just looks like the same actor. And
I'm okay with that. I don't want any of those. I don't even want Hugh Jackman to be Wolverine. And I love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I want
me too. But I thought that was that episode. I was like, okay, that's how they're going to bring in the X-Men. That's, Wanda's going to warp something and boom, we have mutants.
Yeah, I don't want any of those X-Men. I want the same thing I wanted for the Bumblebee movie. I wanted the Bumblebee movie to be a complete reboot and leave everything else behind and not tie itself at all to the past. But there we go.
But now Rise of the Beast is going to... What's your expectation of Rise of the Beast? Mess it up, or is it going to be good?
It's going to be a big old fat turd.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna expect absolute garbage. That way, I might be pleasantly surprised when I watch it.
Exactly that.
Okay. I'm not alone. That's good. But yeah, no, I like I don't know at this point, if they're gonna introduce the mutants properly. I hope that I would have hoped that they kept the New Mutants. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
Yes.
I liked it.
Which one's the new? Is that the one where they're in the
they're in the asylum. The New Mutants, they're in the asylum, and they don't know that they're mutants, or they know, and then it's complicated, and then there's a doctor shielding them from the outside. But I thought it was the original crew. Those 5 characters were the original New Mutants, and I thought they nailed it really, really well. I really enjoyed it. The ending was a bit corny, but and that actress who played Magic, she is so good.
Yeah, what's her name? Anya something?
Yeah, I think you're right, but I discovered her in Split.
Yeah, Split was fantastic.
Oh, Split, that whole trilogy now. Split, Glass a little less, but Split was amazing. But she was in there, and The Queen's Gambit, which was a phenomenal story with no superpower, nothing sci-fi, and I actually enjoyed it. But yeah, I hope that they keep the New Mutants to go with that.
I don't want any. I want it all new.
All new.
I want it all new, and I want them to go hard with it, just like they did with the Avengers.
And
straight up,
they need to. I mean,
straight up comic book costumes, over the top.
I mean, I love the MCU, but we need something other than what's following the Avengers or their story arc.
I actually haven't watched much since I watched Loki and WandaVision after and Spider-Man Far From Home, but I haven't watched anything. Oh no, that's not true. I watched Winter Soldier and Falcon.
We need a new phase.
Yeah. And it needs to be like we did the Avengers phase. That was great. We need a I mean, not even necessarily an X-Men phase. I would be okay.
Taylor, there you go. That's her name.
Anya Taylor-Joy. That's her. So I would say, even rather than an X-Men phase or of Marvel, I would say an X-Factor or an X-Force. Go something we haven't seen necessarily. And you could bring in the all the other X characters as well. But we've seen, good, bad, or indifferent, we've seen the X-Men stories for the last 20 years. Let's do some X-Force. Let's do some X-Factor or Excalibur. Again, you want to push the diversity buttons, do an Excalibur. Have some foreign team members in there other than just the most foreign thing you get out of X-Men.
I'd like Excalibur with Captain Britain and Megan and Rachel. Well, I'd love to see Rachel on screen. A second Phoenix host. I would love to see that.
The rumor is we're getting a Captain Britain, and it's going to be Henry Cavill.
I could see it.
Yeah, I could totally.
He's a good actor. Witcher is amazing. I like Henry.
He's a phenomenal actor.
I'm as straight as they go, but I would kiss him.
But like the reason I wouldn't want to see this New Mutants crew pop in on like an Excalibur is I don't want the little dragon to be a little fictional piece of power. I want it to be a freaking dragon.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
I want no apologies for it to be an over the top science fiction comic book series.
Yeah, just it's a mutation, and they're here, and they've been among us. They're hiding, and nobody trusts them, but they should, but they won't. And what I want is an actor who's 5'2" to do Wolverine this time. I loved Hugh, great fan of his, but I would love to see a 5'2" Wolverine.
It's a great opportunity to do what they did with Hugh Jackman again, and that is find a diamond in the rough that is just on the verge of stardom. You know, he's out there doing Broadway or something, like Hugh Jackman was, and you know, find that guy because they're out there. These guys are out there. He doesn't need to be young. He can be a guy, like a short guy in his 30s, and it's all just fine. But yeah, I want to see all that, and I want it to be, like I said, unapologetically comic book. Just like they did with the Avengers.
And the advantage with the X-Men is that you don't have to, like the Eternals movie. I don't know if you've seen it.
Not yet.
My wife loved it. I hated it. My least favorite MCU movie. But they took all the white males characters and woke them. They diversified them a lot, which I understand the Hollywood mentality. But with X-Men, you don't have to do that. Because there is black characters, there's Indians, Hispanics, and everybody's there. So you can actually just keep every origin of every character perfect.
The X-Men were way ahead of the curve on the diversity spectrum. I mean, you had Native American, you had Native American, African, not even African American. You had African, like Aurora was straight up an African goddess.
Yep.
So I mean.
You should read the earlier issues when she's like, "Why are we wearing clothes?" And then nobody's asking her to wear clothes.
Yeah, I'm down with all that. I think that would be the way to do it. All right, I really do have to.
It's all good. We've been chatting for an hour, so
my ex-wife's been trying to call me for 30 minutes. I've been getting to the shitty button, so I think
okay, no problem. So I'm going to try to do this right. So I'm going to take us out and then play the outro, which is sorry in the chat, everybody. I know you've been chatting, and I appreciate everybody being here on my first live stream, which has nothing to do with Transformers. But next time I'll try to do a better job to keep track and highlight stuff. But it's been really fun. So now I hit this button here. I'm going to plug in the outro, and remember, nothing in life gives you the right to be an asshole. Take care.